Next on ABC7's Good Morning El Paso weekend, 15 years ago today, a series of attacks on the United States changed the world as we know it and continues to shape the political landscape and more today. An officer killed in the line of duty laid to rest. Thousands coming to Alamogordo to pay their respects. That's the largest bond in El Paso's history, so will it pass muster with the voters? And storm track weather, Stephen.
A cool start to the day, but we're in for a warm afternoon. I'll have those details coming up.
There's all the news you need to start your Sunday, September 11th. ABC7's Good Morning El Paso weekend starts right now.
Live, where news comes first. From the Mesilla Valley and Las Cruces to El Paso and the borderland. This is ABC7's Good Morning El Paso weekend.
A moment of silence in New York City, marking the moment at 8:46 a.m. Eastern Time 15 years ago today when the first plane hit the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Across the nation, Americans gathered to remember this somber day. Nearly 3,000 people died from the attacks on the Twin Towers, to the Pentagon, to the plane that went down in a rural field in Pennsylvania. Well, good morning, El Paso, and thank you for joining us. I'm Andrew J. Polk. We'll get to the many memorials and ceremonies being held today for the September 11th remembrances in a moment. But first, it was a big day for college football here in the borderland. New Mexico State taking on University of New Mexico in the Battle of I-25, and UTEP taking on the Texas Longhorns in front of 100,000 people at Memorial Stadium. Unfortunately for the Miners, the Longhorns would easily take the win, 41-7, the final score there. As for the Aggies, they're celebrating a huge win over the Lobos, 32-31. We'll have your complete highlights coming up in sports. And going back to our top story for the day, the September 11th attacks was the worst terror attacks in this nation's history. This morning, all across the country, Americans are gathering to remember the grief of the many lives lost. ABC's Marcy Gonzalez has more.
Today, from the raw, emotional images seared into the collective memory, to the faces and stories of the 2,996 lives lost. This morning, a somber reflection on all of the heartbreak and horror of 15 years ago today. The impact of the September 11th terror attacks still piercing through the haunting recollections.
As we crawled in deeper, squeezing through tiny openings, we came to the understanding that we were going to die in that pile.
And lingering effects. 127 New York City firefighters who stayed at ground zero in the days and weeks that followed the attacks, searching heroically through the smoldering toxic debris, have since died of respiratory and other ailments.
Nagging problems worsened, chronic became acute, and the number of those lost to the terrorist attack of September 11th began to grow.
17 new names added to the FDNY's memorial wall this year, while again the other names etched into history are read aloud.
Paul Vincent Barbaro,
James William Barbella.
From
Victor
here below
Daniel
the resilient
Barbosa.
reflection of the new One World Trade Center to the Pentagon and the field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, mourning families and our country, honoring that vow made 15 years ago to never forget. And as those families gather here this morning to pay tribute, the NYPD says its officers are on high alert, though the FBI says there are no specific or credible threats. Marcy Gonzalez, ABC News, New York.
Here in El Paso, the El Paso Fire Department will unveil a September 11th memorial today. The Fire Department and El Paso Sheriff's Office will pay tribute to the men and women who lost their lives during the attacks and will hold a special ceremony. The memorial is called Rising Stronger. The unveiling and ceremony will be held at Station 18 on 7901 San Jose Road starting this morning at 9. If you're planning to go, you are encouraged to arrive early. There will be no parking allowed on San Jose Road or Wenda Drive, so drivers will have to park on Milton Road. Police Chief Greg Allen and Sheriff Richard Wiles are expected to speak at the ceremony along with several other elected officials. And just over a week ago, an Alamogordo police officer was killed while chasing a wanted man. Yesterday, funeral services were held for Officer Clint Corvinus. More than 2,000 law enforcement agents and supporters attended yesterday's services. The community showed much appreciation and love they have for all law enforcement and for Officer Corvinus. Alamogordo residents gathered roadside holding American flags as the hearse carrying Corvinus' body drove by. Outside New Mexico's University Taze Center, agencies with Border Patrol, state police, and sheriff's offices throughout the region stood saluting as Corvinus' casket was carried in. Inside, it was standing room only as many listened to Governor Susana Martinez speak, and Martinez took a moment to address Corvinus' 14-year-old daughter.
A man who was willing to give up his life to protect those he loved and even those he didn't even know.
Officer Corvinus leaves behind his parents and his daughter. Again, more than 2,000 people attended yesterday's funeral services. Switching to our storm track weather now, the borderland off to a cool start this morning, but certainly not as windy as yesterday morning. Take a look. Several parts of town saw such strong winds even caused some serious damage. The winds knocked over this tree, landed right on top of these vehicles. Our weather team says at one point the winds hit up to 55 miles per hour gusting in some parts of our region. So let's send things over to Storm Track meteorologist Stephen Decatur. He has your first forecast. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, Andrew. Temperatures are going to be warming up quickly this morning. We're on our way to a pretty nice day here in the borderland. If you need to get anything done today is the day to do it. Rain chances are going to be at 0 once again. No winds to deal with today. That's certainly the good news. Yesterday was quite the headache. You can see temperatures 63 degrees in Las Cruces, 67 in El Paso. Winds very light, 7 miles an hour in Las Cruces, 3 miles an hour in El Paso. Really not a factor at all, and they're going to be holding right around there as we head throughout the day. Here's your planner. 86 degrees by the end of the day, a gorgeous sunny day. South winds 5 to 10 miles an hour, and again, no rain chances today, but those rain chances are going to be coming back as we head through the next 7 days, and I'll have those details coming up. Andrew?
All right, thanks, Stephen. Check back in just a bit. In the meantime, though, it's the largest bond proposal in El Paso's history, so will it pass? Yesterday, dozens of people gathered at Edgemere Park to show support for the nearly $669 million EPISD bond. More than 50 people crowded a podium, including teachers, parents, students, and speakers like Congressman Beto O'Rourke and EPISD Board Trustee Susie Bird, all of them advocating for the bond to be passed this November, holding signs for El Paso Rising, the campaign to pass the bond. Those we spoke with say they're hoping to get new equipment and upgraded classroom. Some teachers say it should benefit even those who don't have children in the district.
Even if you don't have kids, you've got kids in your community. You know, you've got kids next door, you've got kids down the block, you've got friends that have kids. So it's not like, I don't see anyone in isolation. It's a community effort.
Although everyone was showing support at this event, there are still some doubts about teachers concerned about making sure the approved money is spent where voters are told it will. EPISD Susie Bird told ABC7 trustees are putting a resolution on the next board agenda, which will describe the projects and will be able to hold the board accountable. And the weather continues to affect the borderland. Coming up on Good Morning El Paso Weekend, a further look at the damage just from the wind. And later, ideas worth sharing back in the borderland. The discussion at this TEDx. It is 8:08 right now, taking a live look at our ABC7 traffic track systems, looking fairly green across the board there. A little bit of a slowdown maybe on part of Montana as you head toward further along the east side, but otherwise very clear and clear conditions out there as well. And a storm track weather, Stephen.
A gorgeous day on the way, but rain chances are coming back to the borderland, and temperatures, they're going to be heating up. All those details coming up.
You're watching ABC7, where news comes first.